Oh boy, we're back again. Welcome back to another episode of the Robbie Basel Show. Today is March 15th, 2024. I'm your host, Robbie Basel. Hope everyone's had a good week. It's been an absolute week of chaos in sports all around the world. Today was the Champions League draw. I did not wake up early for it, but I did get about 20 notifications about the entire draw. We'll break that whole thing down for you guys today. What to watch out for in early April, which is when the next round of the Champions League is. March Madness, give an update on the bubble, who to watch out for in the last 2 to 3 days of the NCAA men's basketball season before the big dance. It's a lot of fun what happened. I'll talk about the MAAC a little bit because I was there on Tuesday. I watched pretty much the whole thing for the men's side. It's been so much fun to watch. A lot of the games have been so good, and some of the games have just been. You just ask yourself, what the hell was that? I think that's happened a lot for me over the last couple of days when I was there on Tuesday. And of course, we'll talk about NFL free agency. How could I almost forget about that? Because that's where we're starting today. It's with NFL free agency. So when we left off last time, it was like the calm before the storm a little bit because right when I ended the video, every it's like the floodgates opened again. Like it happened the first time, and then 10 minutes after the video, it's like, oh yeah, a ton of people signed. So let's talk about it. So when we left off on Tuesday, we saw a lot of major deals done. So what we're gonna do today is we are going to talk about it's been a lot of trades. That's the best way I can put it. It's a lot of trades. But let's start with the free agency signing. So the big deals recently, from last time we had it was, I believe Gardner Minshew signed the new deal. Sam Howell got traded to Seattle, which makes, I don't know what they're trying to do. They replaced Drew Lock with him because Drew Lock went to the Giants. Sure. I mean, they replaced one quarterback with a good arm and with no accuracy with another guy with a big arm and no accuracy. So that'll be fun to deal with for Seattle. They did get somebody better with Sam Howell. I like Sam Howell a lot. With the right system, they just need a coach who can help them prevent the turnovers. He is the new Jameis Winston of the league. Josh Johnson re-signed with the Ravens. And there's been a lot of other confusing moves. Jameis Winston, after the aforementioned Jameis Winston, he went to the Cleveland Browns, which I'm like, sure, why not? I mean, at this point, who knows who their starting quarterback's going to be? It's going to be. I hope it's Deshaun again because he's such an elite player. But you don't know what type of Deshaun Watson you're going to get. So that's what I think on that. There's been a lot of other moves in the quarterback market, and to be fair, a lot of the big guys signed on the first day. Running back, same deal. Derrick Henry went to the Ravens. That was the big one I think that happened right after I got off from the last episode. A.J. Dillon re-signed with the Packers. Devin Singletary, I don't know if I talked about him. He signed with the Giants after they lost Saquon Barkley. And a bunch of the other moves, the aforementioned Saquon Barkley, Jacobs, Pollard, Eckler, Swift, Gus Edwards, Dylan, Moss, Antonio Gibson, they all happened already. So, like I said, when we talked about it on Tuesday morning, some of the bigger deals happened already. Wide receiver market, that started to heat up a little bit with a couple of major confusing moves. Talk about Darnell Mooney. This happened after the episode got off the air. He signed with the Falcons on a big contract, 3 years, $39 million. You saw Curtis Samuel yesterday. He signed a nice deal with the Bills. He's getting $8 million a year. He is probably the replacement for Gabe Davis. We already talked about Kendrick Bourne. Cedric Wilson went to the Saints. I feel like that's a pretty interesting move. There's a couple other ones that we haven't talked about yet. But, and of course, Deontay Johnson. He got traded to the Carolina Panthers. They're one of the most confusing teams in this free agency window. To make this even more weird, Marquise Brown, Hollywood, is going to Kansas City. He's going to the Red Kingdom on a 1-year deal. Sure. But the weirdest deal of them all. Calvin Ridley to Tennessee. Now, they could be the surprise team of this year. They could. But what we've learned is that the AFC South improved so much this offseason. Texans get another good running back. They had Dameon Pierce, but he's kind of fallen off. Hopefully he can recover his form with Joe Mixon in the backfield next year. They've also upgraded a little bit on other pieces on both sides of the ball. Tennessee going like a mini all-in push by signing guys like Calvin Ridley. They signed a running back from what I remember. Yeah, they signed Tony Pollard to be with Tajay Spears. They have an okay defense, but they did just lose another edge rusher. Their defense is horrible. So it's like the opposite of the Jets because their defense is good and their offense is terrible. But Tennessee, their offense is good and their defense is terrible. I don't know. Very weird team. But they signed Ridley, $92 million. Go get your bag, kid. I did not think he was going to get a deal like this. No shot. But he did. Got a big-time deal, 4 years, $92 million, $50 million guaranteed. Good deal. Whoever his agent is, round of applause. I can't really do it because I'm holding the mic. But 2 claps for the agent. That's about it. I know that was cringe. Don't ask me about it. Tight ends. There wasn't really anything that happened. I guess Irv Smith, I think, was one of them. Austin Hooper signed with the Pats. Gesicki went to the Bengals, which, sure, Mike Gesicki to the Bengals, but a lot of the other deals already happened. Schultz, Hunter Henry, Noah Fant. Gerald Everett went to the Bears. We'll talk about the Bears in a minute. There's a couple other small moves, but there wasn't like a big-time tight end in free agency this year. Offensive tackle, not much has happened. Jonah Williams, who I thought the Jets were going to go out and get. He went to the Cardinals on a big-time deal, 2 years, $30 million. Good deal for Jonah Williams. Weird deal for the Cardinals because I didn't think they were going to sign anyone good. And there wasn't really other major names that signed after him in the last couple of days. Center market's heated up a little bit with Andre James going to the Raiders. We already talked about Lloyd Cushenberry. He signed with the Titans on that big contract a couple of days ago. Tyler Biadasz, he went with Washington. Aaron Brewer, signed with the Dolphins. And Coleman Shelton signed with the Bears. In the guard market, not much has happened. I don't think so, at least. I'm trying to remember them all. We already knew about Kevin Dotson and the other player with the Rams. Jonah Jackson, We know about the big Robert Hunt contract with the Panthers. Not much has happened over there. The defense is where it's heated up a little bit. So, last time we were here, I think Madubuike re-signed, but I'm not sure. Because what I'm looking at with PFF, they don't say when the contract actually happened. So, I already know we talked about Chris Jones. I know we talked about Christian Wilkins. Leonard Williams, we talked about him too. DJ Reader, he went to the Lions. I did not expect that from Detroit. It's a great kid. Sheldon Rankins got overpaid heavily by the Cincinnati Bengals. You have Grover Stewart. We talked about him. Quentin Jefferson also went to the Cleveland Browns. Shelby Harris re-signed with the Cleveland Browns. And there wasn't really another major name that's signed in that position. Edge rusher. There's a bunch of good people still here. Chase Young hasn't been signed yet. I don't know what's going on there. He's still here. Jadeveon Clowney's still not signed. Calais Campbell, Carl Lawson, Yannick Ngakoue, you know what he can bring to the table. Bunch of other solid players. Yetur Gross-Matos, who I think is underrated. He's signed with the Niners. Great deal for them. I think he's going to be a stud. But there hasn't been another deal in this market that's screaming off the charts. Marcus Davenport can be a good get from the Lions. I think he can be a major threat off the edge. But yeah, there wasn't recently a deal that's been, unless I'm forgetting something, that's been screaming off the charts. Here, this is where the fun begins. linebacker. When we were here last time, nothing happened. This is where the fun begins. Right after we went off the air, Patrick Queen went to the Steelers. Because why not? 3 years, $41 million, and a bigger contract than I thought he was going to get from the rivals, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who were chanting, like trying to go with like a let's ride type of deal for Russell Wilson, and now get their elite middle linebacker in Patrick Queen. This really shores up their defense. A team that will inevitably go over 500 because why not? They got Patrick Queen. Great get with Patrick Queen. That's a phenomenal move. Levante David signed with the Bucks again. He re-signed on a 1-year deal. Jordan Brooks went to the Dolphins to replace Jerome Baker. Jerome Baker's actually meeting with teams. Has started to meet with more teams recently, so I think we could see Jerome Baker sign before the next episode of this show. Devin White went to the Eagles. I don't know why, but the Eagles the Eagles window, it's like it was starting to close and then it just stopped closing. It's like one of those moments because they've really gone out and added a lot of good players. We'll talk about them in a minute. We talked about Kenneth Murray already. Devin Bush went to the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland, they're trying to make some moves. Nicholas Morrow, an experienced middle linebacker, heads to the Bills, a team that has probably one of the more confusing off seasons in the league. Willie Gay went to the Saints. Tyrell Dodson signed with Seattle. We already talked about the other big moves already. Corner market. This started to heat up a little bit. We talked about Chidobe Awuzie last time, but Kendall Fuller, he signed with Miami. 2 years, $16.5 million. Great deal from Miami. They get a much cheaper option after cutting Xavier Howard. I mean, sure. I think this is a fine move, but I really think they wish they had Xavier Howard. They also other moves were Sean Murphy Bunting. I think we talked about him already going to the Cardinals. Ronald Darby, Dane Jackson signed up with other teams. Darby signed with the Jags. Dane Jackson to the Panthers. And not other big moves. Dante Jackson got traded to the Steelers, sure. But there really hasn't been another big move. We talked about Xavier McKinney in the safety market. Cameron Curl signed with the Rams. I think it's a great get for the Los Angeles Rams. Geno Stone went to the Bengals. I think we may have talked about that already. This one hurts. It was Jordan Whitehead to the Bucks. He went back to Tampa Bay on a much smaller rate. This one was weird. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, another Eagles signing. How do they have this money? They went out and signed C.J. Gardner-Johnson, probably, I think, the best safety in the market this year. So they're going really all in this go-around. It's fair play to them. And then the other moves we already talked about. So if we're going team by team, the winners of free agency, we already know what this is. We'll start us off with the Philadelphia Eagles. But wait, before we talk about that, ladies and gentlemen, we have a trade. We had a trade this morning with the Minnesota Vikings. They got another first-round pick. They traded with the Houston Texans, and now the Vikings have multiple first-round picks in the upcoming NFL draft. Now, this trade, let's talk about what was in the trade and what this means for both teams. So, the Vikings acquired pick number 23 overall in the first round and pick number 232 as they get it from the Texans for the 42nd pick, 188th pick, and a second-round pick in 2025. So, what this is saying is that Minnesota is going to... There's two ways to look at it. Minnesota has a player they like in the back end of the first round, or they're trying to move up for a quarterback, and they're not, trying to announce their plan. It's a weird one, because the only team I really see trading down, I actually don't think they're going to do it anymore because they traded Mac Jones this week, was New England. but I don't think they do it. I think 1, 2, and 3 are set. I think it's going to go Williams. I really think Washington's going to pick Daniel. I think they should pick Daniels, but I think they're going to go with May and then Daniels. One of the order of the three. Then that's where the chaos starts. Because do you trade up for J.J. McCarthy, who I don't think should be going this high? Do they go out and address other weapons with Marvin Harrison? There's multiple directions you can go with the 4th overall selection. But what Minnesota acquiring the 23rd pick, they're going to start to say, oh great, we signed Sam Darnold. He's our backup next year. We have Jaren Hall, who can maybe learn behind Sam Darnold. I don't know. Who's their starter going to be? They lost Cousins. You have to have to throw something. You have to have someone throw the ball to Jefferson, Osborne, Addison. They have T.J. Hockenson at tight end. They have so many elite position players. Who's their quarterback? This sounds like this is the NFC's version of the New York Jets. Elite other offensive weapons. Terrible quarterback around them. Well, semi-terrible. The Jets had Rodgers, and then he got hurt. Speaking of Aaron Rodgers, we'll talk about him now. He was linked to being a vice president this week. I was like, I arrived at the hotel on Tuesday, and I get a text. It's like, yeah, Aaron Rodgers might be RFK's vice president. When RFK runs for president this year. And I was like, nah. But at the end of the day, I'm like, that's such an Aaron Rodgers thing to do. Aaron Rodgers is a very weird character. And I think Green Bay is having a laugh right now because, hey man, they lost. They traded their star quarterback. Now have another star in Jordan Love, who I was writing off for years. Now they're like, oh great, Aaron Rodgers is screwing up, but in a different market. So they're like, Green Bay's like, this is what you get for trading for Aaron Rodgers. The Jets are a mess. They haven't really done much in free agency. I think they're going to try to make a move at the time of the draft, but what a weird situation. What I want to know is if Aaron Rodgers is even going to talk about this. So I don't think we will find out for a little bit. That's the NFL free agency market. It's been absolute madness. Trades of galore. I'm probably missing a trade. Oh, yeah, I am missing a trade. I forgot to mention the Chicago Bears. They traded for Keenan Allen last night. Almost forgot. Keenan Allen is now a Chicago Bear and will probably be playing with Caleb Williams as their quarterback, which begs the question, where is Justin Fields' trade market gone? It's going down like the Tesla stock from the last month. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go research it. It's gone down like 28%. But it's going on a downward slide even more and more by the day. What has this market turned into? We don't know. Because nothing is making sense. His market is all but gone. You could have traded him to the Falcons. They signed Kirk Cousins. You could have traded him to the Vikings. They signed Sam Darnold and now are going to try to make a move for a quarterback. You could have traded him, to Seattle. They traded for Sam Howell. Could have sent him to somewhere like the Raiders. They signed Gardner Minshew. His market is gone, essentially. They're not going to get really anything in return from him anymore. People thought, yeah, you could still get a first-round pick. No one's trading a first-round pick for an unproven starting quarterback. Yeah, you heard me right. He's not done anything. All he's proven is that he's inconsistent with the ball in his hands and he can run. That's about it. So I would not be trading a pick in the first 2 days for that, honestly. But Keenan Allen, great get. Horrible cap hit, though, for the Bears. But they're making that division even more fun. If the Vikings find a way to trade into the top 3 and get one of those top 3 guys, that will probably be up there for the most competitive division this year. You have the Packers, who are who made some great moves this offseason. They have their future guy in Jordan Love. The Lions are still going to be around. The Vikings are going to be like in there, I think, here and there, depending on who their quarterback is. Now you have Chicago joining the mix, who haven't had an elite quarterback. I don't even know how long it's been since they've had an elite quarterback. Jay Cutler, I guess, but I don't know. It's a very weird situation. But ladies and gentlemen, it's March. Let's head to basketball. It's March Madness time. Let's break it down again. So, we're looking at ESPN again. We're looking at the bubble teams. Let's look at my bubble. My last 4 buys right now, going into the last, I've changed a little bit. I would have Michigan State, Mississippi State, Oklahoma. Listen, I like that Colorado team, man. Colorado plays in a very crucial game tonight at 10:30 against Washington State. If they win that game, they're safe. Winning in for Colorado. And I think that will push them to the last 4 buys. The team that's starting to fall a little bit is the Seton Hall Pirates. They lost to St. John's yesterday. They did not look that good against St. John's yesterday. But there's other teams that are falling as well. You talk about New Mexico. I think Indiana State is done. New Mexico, probably done as well, but I don't know. The team that I still think has a chance, and the reason I still think they have a better chance than most, is Providence. They have to win tonight. It's a must-win game for the Providence Friars. They beat Creighton yesterday in a thriller. It was awesome. They now have a good amount of ranked, a decent amount of ranked wins. They've beaten Creighton twice. They've beaten Marquette already this season. Listen, do they have a couple of bad losses? 100%. But listen, this is a good team. The Providence Friars, who, for reference, haven't had their best player for half the season. But they've been led by Devin Carter, who's putting up 19.5 a game. He's playing out of his mind. He's looked awesome. And I think that's going to be one of the main reasons they get in. My last 4 in right now are Seton Hall, St. John. It's a lot of Big East teams. Seton Hall, St. John's, Texas A&M, Providence. Which would bump Virginia down. Now, Virginia is also in a very weird position. Because Virginia plays North Carolina State tonight, a North Carolina State team that beat Duke. So if Virginia wins, this makes this situation even more interesting. Which brings to my point of St. John's actually has to win this game still with UConn to be totally safe. I don't think they're safe yet. The teams I don't think are safe are St. John, or all the 3 Big East teams. I think all 3 of them could be a safe 11 seed or not even in it to be at, or not even in it at all. Seton Hall really getting down. They're going to be sweating it out on Sunday. St. John's, I think if they get blown out today by UConn, which I think is very possible. First of all, UConn looked great yesterday. They dominated Xavier. They're done too. But I don't know how that game's going to look, because it's basically home court advantage for St. John's to begin with. They're playing UConn in the Garden. UConn has already beat St. John's at the Garden. So how is that going to look? I think UConn wins. UConn just has too many good players. Klingon, Newton, I'm totally missing somebody. Let's talk about UConn. Because this UConn bunch, I don't want to forget names. Because I don't want to look like an idiot. They have Tristan Newton. They have Caravan. Let's go over some of their big names. Because I love this UConn team again. I hated they played Iona last year. But they have to talk about them. They have guys like Tristan Newton. Cam Spencer, who I almost forgot. I feel horrible for that. They have Caravan, Klingon, Stefan Castle, Hassan Diarra, who I think is underrated. He's been a great weapon for them off the bench. They have a ton of talent. And their depth could bring some impact into any basketball game. They're going to be one of the main favorites to win the whole thing. I think they beat St. John's. I don't know how big the win's going to be. Any other venue, I think St. John's loses by 20 plus for how good UConn looked yesterday. But with this game being at MSG, I think it will be closer. Which brings to the question, if Colorado wins tonight against a projected 5 seed, and St. John's loses, where the heck does it put them? Because we could easily see 3 Big East teams in Dayton on Tuesday and Wednesday. Will it be not as fun as you would think? It's still going to be great basketball. But I don't think St. John's fans should be thinking that their team is as safe as they are, due to how many teams could really change their tournament look in about 2 days. Really looking at A&M. I'm looking at Providence. Both teams will be fighting for their lives tonight. You could watch it on the SEC network. Texas A&M plays Kentucky. If A&M wins, they're safe. I really think they could be safe because they're playing a top 10 team in the country in the SEC tournament. I think that'd be a great win for A&M. Could really bump them to the last 4 byes for me. If Providence beats Marquette, they beat 2 top 15 sides in the span of 2 days. I think that's more impressive than a team like St. John's. I think that's more impressive than a team like Seton Hall. I think Providence could really start to get themselves into a region that would put them as safe. Looking at the projected bracket now on ESPN, there's a lot of teams that I think could still be dark horses, but we'll talk about my full NCAA tournament predictions in the full NCAA tournament video that comes out on Tuesday. Making the video, I think it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about. Usually I have some predictions that go off the rails, but listen, we'll see. I did predict Furman to beat Virginia last year, so just saying, in one of my brackets at home. But yeah, there's a lot of dark horses that we will totally address come Tuesday. Selection Sunday is going to be a blast. It's at 6 p.m., I believe, on Sunday. So all to watch out for in the NCAA tournament. But I have to talk about this. The MAAC tournament. We're talking about the MAAC. Of course we have to. Let's break it down. So I was there for the first day on Tuesday. It was madness for the men's tournament. I went to the men's tournament on Tuesday. I didn't really focus on the women's tournament that much because I don't know that much about the women's league. But the men's league, I followed so much this year, I have to talk about it. We opened the night with Canisius. Canisius played out of their minds. It was close for a while. They played Mount St. Mary's. It was a back and forth showdown all the way. But Trey Dinkins, the junior from Chester, Pennsylvania, really turned it up when they needed it. And he went out and led Canisius to a big-time win over the Mount. It was such a fun game. It was back and forth all the way. And then Canisius eventually blew it open. Fair play to Canisius. They made it to the second round, which we'll talk about in a minute. Iona, they played Manhattan, and the game... I've never seen an ending like the Iona game. For how this game ended, I think Iona was up by 2, and they were inbounding the ball on the right under their basket on the baseline. Joel Brown essentially hands the ball to a Manhattan player. I think it was Winston for Manhattan, and that led to a foul. And they missed a free throw. And the second free throw was a lane violation because they're trying to miss it and get the putback. Iona goes down, gets the foul, Jeremiah Quigley, who was one of my favorite players to watch in this game. He hit some very clutch free throws down the stretch. Edon Tretu looked great. The full court pressure led by the aforementioned Joel Brown looked great. Iona went out and had a very gritty win that should not have been that close against Manhattan. Because what's a lead? Instead of what's a Jasper, what's the idea of holding a lead? I mean, they could not do that all year. But talk about Iona in a moment as well. Then we have the concluding game of the night, which I only got to watch the first half of, but I did get to see the second half on replay, which was Niagara-Siena. Now, Siena looked solid for a 4-win team. They played very well against one of my sleeper teams to win the whole thing in Niagara. And listen, Niagara pulled away at the end. It was back and forth all the way. a game that went until about 1 in the morning Eastern time. Niagara went out and beat Siena 67-65. In the quarterfinals, Fairfield beat Iona in the nightcap in the second game. Listen, it was a hard-fought game, but too many turnovers down the stretch for the Gales. Turnovers from Quigley, Tretu. I mean, they couldn't hit a shot down the stretch as well. Hate to see Iona end their season like that, but listen, this was the transition year for the Gales. You have to have the idea that they're going to bounce back next season, but yeah, tough way to see them go out. It's really sad. Yeah, at the end of the day, they have a lot of good young players. Just going to see if do the young players actually stay. That's when we saw Greg Gordon leave in February. We'll see where he lands later on in the transfer portal. Quinnipiac opened the day, though, by beating Canisius by 24. Canisius held this game close at the half, and then he got turned into a blowout because Quinnipiac has so much talent. Dinkins didn't do enough, couldn't do it all. Quinnipiac won. Simple as that. Marist beat my sleeper team in Niagara because Marist apparently is just inconsistent all year long and then good in the MAAC tournament the last 2 years. I don't know. Marist went out and won by 6 points in the opener. And then St. Peter's, who played the most boring game possible against Rioter, they went out and beat Rioter by 2 points. And the winning score was 50-48. This game sucked, but St. Peter's, I think the best defensive team in the conference. They don't score. They can only defend. It's boring, but it works. It works. And St. Peter's got it done. They won by 2. Setting up your semifinals today of Quinnipiac, St. Peter's, and Fairfield against Marist. I like that St. Peter's defense. I don't like their offense at all. I think Quinnipiac should win. I'm picking Fairfield to beat Marist. Setting up Quinnipiac, Fairfield, which Quinnipiac should win on Saturday night. It's going to be a fun MAAC tournament down the stretch in Atlantic City. I wish I was there to watch it, but at the end of the day, it should be a ton of fun to watch. Those games tonight are on ESPN News. If you have ESPNU, that's where the championship game is at 7:30 on Saturday night. If I had to pick an All-MAAC championship team, we'll look at the All-MAAC championship team on Tuesday. That's what we'll do. But the MAAC NCAA tournament, ton of fun so far. It's going to be very fun to see how it ends. Our next topic of the day, we are going to not talk about, actually we will talk about the Champions League next. It is time to discuss the Champions League draw. Yay! Alright. Let's start off with Arsenal, who beat Porto. They drew Bayern because it's just inevitable at this point. Arsenal play Bayern on April 9th. All the games are on April 9th and April 16th for the 2 legs. Arsenal drew Bayern. It could have been worse. Let's talk about what the matchups are. They will play the winner of Real Madrid and Manchester City. Of course it is, because that's a perfect matchup. On the other side, we have Atletico Madrid. They drew Borussia Dortmund. Great draw for both of them. I think any of those teams can win. And then we have PSG against Barcelona. Who wants to lose in the semifinals is basically what that matchup's asking, because I think Atletico Madrid could make the final. Now let's preview each matchup. Arsenal against Bayern. It's like for me, it feels like a little bit of the North London derby with Arsenal and Tottenham, because Tottenham lost 2 players to Bayern in Harry Kane and Eric Dyer. But this Bayern team, they ain't one to mess around. They're a very good squad. Looking at some of the players they have, they love to score goals from open play. They scored 73 goals. They know how to score. They are led, of course, by Harry Kane, who is the only player with more than 10. He's scored 30. It's ridiculous. They also have players like Jamal Musiala, Leroy Sané. They have a very, very good team under Thomas Tuchel. The issue for them has been consistency, because if you look at their matches, yeah, they've looked better recently. They beat Mainz 8-1. But they lost to Bochum. They've lost to Leverkusen again. They lost to Lazio in the first leg. They've drawn Freiburg. I think this is the only real time where Bayern are vulnerable because they're not in first in the league. They're 10 points behind Leverkusen. Now, can Bayern make up ground on Leverkusen? Yeah, but I think Bayern has to kind of focus on the UCL more because they know they're not going to win the league. But at the end of the day, Bayern's schedule leading up to the matchup, they have Darmstadt, Dortmund, then they have Heidenheim, then the first Arsenal game. So, listen, we have Bayern against Dortmund still. It could come down the stretch, but that's the Bundesliga. They have such a good team. It's gonna go back and forth. I like that Arsenal group. They're gonna be in the title race. They have to pick what they want to focus on because Arsenal don't play a match till March 31st. They have as of today a 16-day break till their next match, and their next match is against Manchester City in a match that will likely decide the title race. And I hate that it's the 31st because I think City actually get to play at least one game before then. Yeah, they get to play tomorrow in the FA Cup, which is our last topic of the day. We'll talk about that later. It's all to play for in this Champions League tie. We'll predict it in a moment. Real Madrid against Manchester City, the rematch of the last year's final. I love this game. I love it. I absolutely love it. Real Madrid hosted at Field Leg 1 of the Bernabeu, then they play at the Etihad. If you look at Real Madrid, listen, this is the last year before they get Mbappe, Endrick. This is their last year before they come an absolute demigod type team. Of course, they're led by Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Jr. They have Joselu, who's his story is incredible. They have a lot of players who can make plays. They have Toni Kroos still playing well, Rodrigo, Luka Modric. They have a lot of good teams, and they know how to score at an elite rate. So, they've been really good at home. On the road, they haven't been as good. But if you're looking at this matchup as a whole, the only worry for both teams is the injuries. De Bruyne out till late March. Well, he'll probably come back for this Champions League tie. Ederson, same deal. Jack Grealish is right now injured. Real Madrid haven't had their starting keeper all year with Thibaut Courtois. They don't have Militao, Alaba, Ceballos. They don't have some of their best players. I don't know how this tie is going to go. Real Madrid looked really vulnerable against RB Leipzig. So I think this is a good chance for City. On the other side of the bracket, Atletico Madrid they've battled their way. They went out and beat Inter on penalties after the worst pen I've ever seen from Lautaro Martinez. They went out and won on pens. 2-2 aggregate score. A late goal. An extremely late goal. Let's talk about that second leg. Because we talked about what the game could be like, but this is how the game went. Antoine Griezmann responded well from a Federico Di Marco opening goal. And then extremely late, 87th minute, from Memphis Depay, who's a former Barcelona player. He went out and grabbed the equalizer on aggregate for Atletico Madrid. Then they went out and won it on penalties. It started off with Çalhanoğlu. He scored. Then Depay. Alexis Sanchez missed, which I forgot he still even played. Sal Niguez then missed. David Klaassen missed. Rodrigo Riquelme scored. Acerbi scored. Angel Correa. And then the terrible miss from Lautaro Martinez. It was something else, that game. I didn't get to really watch it because this game was even weirder. Was PSV, who only had 1.55 XG, yet it felt like they had 37 chances to go out and score a goal. I think this XG should be wrong. I think their XG should be over 3. This PSV one. Because you gotta applaud a couple of people. Gregor Kobel, the Swiss goalkeeper, put on a masterclass on, I think it was on Wednesday. He put on a masterclass. I think that's the only way you can really put it. He didn't concede. He put up a phenomenal performance. Jadon Sancho scored the opening goal of the match in the 3rd minute. And then Marco Reus scores late on to end the tie after PSV sent everyone forward. Borussia Dortmund are through. They're playing Atletico Madrid. Very balanced tie. Two teams that, listen, it could have. I think this tie really goes either way. The previous times they've played, they used to have not faced in a competitive match since 2018, which is why I bring this up, that it could really go either way. Dortmund won the first time. Atletico responded well. They played in the group stage last, and now they get to go head-to-head 6 years later, 5.5 years later. Right now, both these teams are fourth in the league, but Borussia Dortmund barely scores more goals, but Atletico Madrid knows how to do it in bigger moments. I think this tie can go either way. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And then PSG Barcelona. Barcelona beat Napoli. We knew that was going to happen. They're playing Paris Saint-Germain, which feels like a repetitive theme for PSG because they always play. Because PSG, let's break down this tie as well. These two face a lot in the Champions League knockouts. Last time, it actually went the way of PSG in 2021, where PSG won on aggregate 5-2. But some of these fixtures in this tie have gone absolutely crazy. We know about the infamous 6-1 matchup in 2017 when Roberto scored that goal in the 95th minute to win it for Barcelona. We know about some of the other ties. These two have played a lot in the last half decade, even decade or so, in the Champions League. These two giants will go head-to-head once again. I'm loving this tie. Prediction time. Arsenal-Bayern. I think Arsenal win the first leg, but they don't get it done in Germany. I'm saying 3-2 aggregate, sending Bayern to the semifinals. Real Madrid against City. I'm going to go Manchester City on this one. Real Madrid, I think they might be the frauds of this year. I'm going to go with City over Real Madrid. I have City going to the final, then beating Bayern, because Bayern are going to fall off a cliff. I think City go out and win it. They're going to advance to the Champions League final. Other side, I have Atletico Madrid beating Borussia Dortmund, an Atletico Madrid team that knows how to battle so well. I think this is the lowest scoring tie of them all. 2-1 tie to Atletico Madrid. And then this one, PSG against Barcelona. This one is the one that could really go either way. Right now, with this Paris Saint-Germain team, they have too much controversy. I'm going to go with Barcelona to beat PSG, and it's the battle of La Liga. I have Barcelona going into the Champions League final against Manchester City, and Manchester City are my UEFA Champions League champions. Now, do I hate this pick? 100%. Whoever wins the the Arsenal, Bayern, Real Madrid, City side of the bracket will win the Champions League. So I really think this can go like a million different directions. I could see Arsenal winning the Champions League. I see Real Madrid winning it. City, Bayern. The only other team I could see from the opposite side of the bracket winning the Champions League, I think it's Atletico Madrid. I don't think it's Barcelona because they don't really have the depth to do it. Atletico Madrid is a team that battles so well. Borussia Dortmund could be possibly thrown into that argument, but I don't think they would beat Barcelona. I think Atletico Madrid would beat Barcelona. So I think there's 5 teams left that actually have a true shot at winning it. PSG, they're in too much controversy with Mbappe. They're a mess. Barcelona, I don't know. Borussia Dortmund, we don't know. I mean, they barely beat PSV. So that could go a million different directions. But that's the Champions League. Briefly, we're going to talk about the FA Cup because there's no Premier League matchups this week. Our beautiful matchups are Wolves against Coventry, Man City against Newcastle, Leicester and Chelsea, and then United and Liverpool. My predictions. I have Liverpool beating United. I have Chelsea beating Leicester. Coventry, man. I like that Coventry team, you know. Listen, Coventry, they're a weird bunch. I think they're the shockers of this year. They're led by, and it's not because they are led by American Haji Wright. Maybe it is. But, in all seriousness, they have a ton of good players. Ellis Sims, Tatsuro Sakamoto. I know the names are hard to pronounce. It sounds like I've never said it before, but chill out. Haji Wright's done a lot of good things for them. 13 goals, 6 assists. He's been playing phenomenally. A Coventry team that was on the downward slide, but they've won back-to-back games. in trying to get themselves into the promotional playoffs to possibly get themselves into the Premier League. By the way, I also think Chelsea's vulnerable. They're playing the best team in the championship. But this Coventry team knows how to get it done against some of the bigger teams in their league. They did just destroy Maidstone. I think Coventry are going to beat Wolves. Wolves, who, granted, have been on a tear. They've won 4 or 5. But this just seems like a trap game for Wolves. I'm going to go with Coventry. Man City are beating Newcastle. That's not a debate. And, of course, Liverpool's being United. I'm actually considering my Leicester pick now. Because Chelsea have not looked great. I mean, not as good as they can be, if you know what I mean. I mean, Chelsea just beat Newcastle. They've drawn Brentford. They lost to Liverpool. They didn't look that convincing against Leeds United. And but they have drawn City. But I don't know about them, man. I'm going to say they continue their momentum. I'm going to pick Chelsea over Leicester. So my teams advancing to the FA Cup semifinals are Coventry, Manchester City, Chelsea, and Liverpool. What I'm hoping for is Chelsea plays Coventry, so Coventry can maybe have a chance to go to the final. Because if Coventry plays City or Liverpool, they're going to losing like 7-0. But listen, it's one of those where you just wait and see, because anything can happen in the FA Cup, and that's why I love it so much. It's one of those tournaments that it's like March Madness. Anything can happen. That's why I love those tournaments so much. On that note, that'll be the end of today's episode of the Robbie Basel Show. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you see, hit the like button down below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel on our way to 50 subscribers. Hopefully you can guys help me reach that goal before my birthday. Next episode, March Madness. Doing a whole episode on that on Tuesday, predicting the entire tournament, previewing most of the possible matchups. It's going to be such a fun episode. We'll be back in the regular dorm setup for that one. I can't wait for you guys to hear my thoughts on the March Madness bracket. On that note, I'm Robbie Basel saying, enjoy your weekend. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye, everyone.